Welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the show that explores the many ways to navigate the successes and failures that aspiring and struggling writers face to make your journey that much easier.
Alex Simmons, how are ya?
I am well, Christopher Ryan. I don't call him Christopher too often.
That's right. I haven't been called that since the last time I got in trouble with my parents. Christopher Joseph Peter Ryan! Uh-oh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the story that kind of tries its best to make your writing journey easier. Sometimes reflecting our experiences, sometimes sharing mutual experiences that you're going through right now. And that's what today's episode is about.
Absolutely.
How to reduce fear and loathing.
But that's a shameless plug that we'll add to later on.
So Alex, and I know that it's weird times out there.
Oh, weird is a wonderful word. Weird.
Yeah, it doesn't really do it justice. Easing into the topic.
And it's like when people say something is interesting. That's a word you can use in different contexts. Yeah, it is a weird time. It's a challenging time. It's to be more transparent in terms of what we're going to be talking about today. Regarding writers, it's a time that's put some creatives in sort of a stasis mode, an uncomfortable blockage, an uncomfortable, oppressive frame of mind, or they're not sure if they should do this or say that, and it's really creating multiple, and I choose this word specifically, checkpoints along the way as we go to create or comment or write about the things that we feel compelled to express.
True.
Yeah. Chris and I have been talking to each other, but also we've been talking to other writers. And one of the reasons that we thought about sharing this episode was I was speaking to a wonderful writer the other day, and this person is not an immigrant, but is in a community with immigrants. And this writer is talking about while they are safe in that respect, meaning they're not fearful of some group of folks coming to take them away. They are aware of what it's doing to the community and feel compelled to try and help some of those people feel better, feel a little safer, deal with their fears and traumas. And in doing that, it is impacting on the artistic work that particular person is doing. Because, hey, we don't live in a bubble. We artists reflect the world. We reflect life. We reflect the things we see. So this person who is a caring person is aware of the worries and sorrows and fears of others, and it's impacting on how they approach their own creative material. And it gives them pause. It gives them pause at a time when normally they might be more fluent and more energized and more ready to just go for it and have a great time. And I think that's, unfortunately, it's something that a number of us are dealing with in different ways. And Chris and I wanted to talk a bit about that today.
Well, I mean, one of the things I think we have to acknowledge, and we're not going to dwell on it because we agreed to not to before the show, but a politics of cruelty is upon us, a politics of payback and revenge and all that sort of stuff is upon us. What history remembers it as and the final outcome, that's not going to help our day to day. What we can do to help our day to day is be aware of what we're doing to ourselves. Yes, those things are horrific. And some of us are called to march and protest. And some of us are called to write letters to the senator or whatever and all that sort of stuff. Okay, those are positive things and you should be careful while you're doing it. But a lot of us are called to doomscroll. And you really have to ask yourself, when I'm on, insert name of your favorite platform here, is it getting me more upset and more hopeless? and more frustrated? Is it increasing my fear? And if so, then you have to be honest with yourself. Am I doing more harm than good? Am I creating such frustration that I can't write?
Mm.
Some are saying there's antidotes to that. And I do want to give people an antidote. It's so easy to find ice picking up this person or pulling that person out of the car or hurting that kid or whatever. There's a young lady named Amanda's Mild Takes. Amanda's Mild Takes. Brilliant. I think she's a lawyer. But one of the things she does is she counter programs to all that. She catalogs the L's that this administration is taking. We hear that, they fired these many people, but you don't really hear that the courts forced them to rehire these many people. Amanda lists all those things. She lists them every week. She's probably 30-second videos. I know she's on Instagram. I'm sure she's on TikTok and a bunch of other places. But if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, there's no stopping this, she's really excellent at showing the ways that things are being stopped and he's being handed L's, and maybe not as going on as well as some many news organizations would let you know. So that's as much time as I think we want to give to the politics of it. We understand, everybody understands the politics of it. This is a show about telling the damn story. So how do you keep going? How do you maintain creativity in a period of cruel punishment and deep fear?
I would jump in with one that may seem counter to what Chris was just saying about, in particular, Amanda Mile takes a wonderful approach to it, and I think that is great, and I'm going to look that up myself. But the other one is facing the challenge in a segmented manner. And what I mean by that is, yes, there's a lot of negative things going on, a lot of negative news. We went through this with COVID. We went through this with a few other particular circumstances where the times they were traumatic. And one of the things that we don't want to do, because I know some people are saying, well, I don't want to, bury my head in the sand and I don't want to pretend like nothing's wrong. No, I'm not asking you to do that at all. But what we will
Right.
ask you to do is, okay, so you're feeling that, take some time and write it out. You're feeling
Mm-hmm.
that tension, you're feeling that anger, you're feeling that frustration, write it out. Take some time on your laptop, or, I like to work with pen and paper sometimes because it's more tactile, it's more visceral, and you can scrawl and you can stroke, and the energy that you're applying to those strokes and things as you're putting your thoughts down is actually a way of expelling an exorcism of some of those emotions, those passions. And you can get them. And you give yourself 20 minutes of writing, free writing, right?
Yeah.
And what you're feeling, express it on paper. Two things come out of that. One, you're not holding it in like so much poisonous bile. That's one. Two, some of the things that you write down there, you may look at later and go, wow, was I that twisted on that particular thing? So that's one, a little bit of hindsight. Three, some of the things that we write as we're feeling these things, as we're thinking these things, as we're saying these things, some of these things, when we go back and look at it later, we go, ooh, I can use that in
Right.
a story. Or, hey, that's a pivotal point. I can see a plot coming out of that. Because we are creative. We are seeing what's going on around us, pro and con. And so much of what we log or journal can be utilized creatively.
Right.
That's my first thought on again,
Well,
a way of dealing with it.
I will tell you, much to my surprise.
Oh, oh, oh boy, here we
Um,
go.
well, I started, it was a weird thing that poetry started jumping out at me as things were beginning to boil up. And one became, as we talked about too many times on the show, it's been a privilege, right?
It's
And
never
I'm
too many
grateful.
times.
That's right. But as that was going to press and all that, things heated up even further. And I did do that exercise that you're talking about. And for some reason, a lot of my frustrations and a lot of my fears were coming out as poetry. Um, Free verse. No, we're not talking about rhyme scheme and meter so much. It's not my style. But I, for some reason, do think in like a broader context when I'm writing. So it
Mhm.
became a final date between me, the metaphoric American, and America. Where, those dates, we've all had those dates where can we just go and talk somewhere?
Mhm.
We're not talking about dinner and a movie here. We're talking about
Mhm.
can we talk somewhere? And that usually means one or the other side is getting dumped. So it became a volume called that Alien Buddha Press also published called America, We Need to Talk. And it was like a final date. And when the fears and the loathings were being portrayed, it was America, my dear, my beloved. And then we would go on to all the other things. And Alien Buddha Press, the main guy there, wanted to publish it because he said it was fierce. And I will just jump at quoting that because how often is this the old aging bald guy going to be called fierce? But it was an
Maybe more times than
outcropping.
you think, fella.
That's right. It was an outcropping of just following your suggestion. So I second that emotion. It can be helpful. And that doesn't mean it has to go to press. That doesn't mean whatever
It's for
happens, happens.
you. It's first and foremost for you. It's
And
for
if
the
that
person. Yeah.
if that gets that out and clears the way for your work in progress, all the more power to it.
Wunderbar.
Um, let's talk about the work in progress. I'm seeing quite numerous posts about with what's going on. I'm having a hard time. I'm feeling distracted. I'm having a hard time sitting down and writing. This is, like you said, very reminiscent of COVID, very reminiscent of other tense times that we have had. And we're both here to tell you that the answer is the writing. The answer is the painting. Their answer is the, slapping headphones on and dancing around. Maybe close the blinds first, but it is if you're of a creative bent, go ahead. Currently, I'm writing something that I don't know if it's YA, young adults, or whatever it is, but it is not plot wise or surface wise about current events. It is not. Metaphorically, you could go to town and say, yeah, well, this represents that and this represents, but I'm not coming down, sitting down. And here's the key. Here's the answer that I think I can give you for how to keep your creativity going during these really challenging times. Love your characters. Absolutely spend time with them. Bring them to the supermarket. Create a playlist so you can help yourself get in their heads.
Musically,
And
he's talking, folks.
musically, yeah, musically. I mean, if I could see people who are more like I just love old TV, like our guy Teal James Glenn could pop off references for 50, 60 years, much like you, of old movies and old. So he might do a playlist for his characters. They love this stuff. They love it. Whatever works. Talk about the external and the internal problems they have or conflicts they have, the loves they have, the hates they have, the fears they have, the strengths they have. Write those down if you want, if you need to. Ask questions about your characters, get to know them. And then when you're writing, you're not spending time with the politics. The news is off. Even the radio is off because the radio can tell you a breaking news thing. Put on a CD or a streaming service that doesn't break into news, or throw some old vinyl on if that's your thing, and or just quiet.
I'm going
and
to jump in
live
right
with,
there.
give me
Okay,
one more
okay,
second,
go ahead, go
one
ahead.
more second,
Yeah.
and live with that characters or these characters and write them. If you're if you're full of fear, write a scary scene with them. But through it, you'll get your story and you'll have a way to excise the stress in your body creatively. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Simmons.
A word from the other one. Yes. Okay. I wanted to say, just to sort of piggyback off of what Chris was saying, when you're listening to what's being piped into you, what's being set up to trigger you, what's being produced and overproduced and multi leveled broadcast of the same old, and it's all negative. When you're living with that moment to moment to moment to moment, it is extremely hard to become immersed in your material. So one of the things that Chris was saying, and it sort of like rang a loud bell with me in terms of how I'm going to phrase this, is if you're playing your own playlist, whether it's movies, TV shows, or music, if you are, for instance, with music, putting on the CDs or whatever musical material you have it on in the background. You're getting caught up in the rhythms, the lyrics, the melodies, the chords of that particular material. And you are creating this environment. You are creating your world. You are creating a world and a hideaway, if you will, or an environment where you can focus in on you and, as Chris is pointing out, on the characters. With me, sometimes when I am working on characters that are in period pieces, you know, when I was working on the Sherlock Holmes piece, okay, there were troubled times, and certainly back in the 1800s in Europe. And again, you know, the British Empire went out and they they went and visited a number of different countries and said, "Hey, we're staying here and move over," right? But I wasn't writing about that. I was writing about Sherlock Holmes, and in the case of my kids' version, The Raven League, I was writing about kids, poor kids, growing up in England at that time and being caught up in some of the crazy, both criminal and political intrigue that was going on around them, and how theoretically they wouldn't have any real power to deal with any of this, but through their own interactions and things somehow became a part of the solution. And what that did for me was I had to get into the kids' world. I had to see the streets and the families and the connections through their eyes. I had to see through the eyes of a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old what it's like to talk to somebody like Sherlock Holmes, who in their eyes is so successful, is so far above them, you know, on a completely different level that they could possibly never reach. And yet he's dealing with them as someone important in his life. And so I really became more involved in the characters, the way Chris is saying, becoming really connected to those children and how they see that world. And somehow you don't focus on some of the other elements that we as mature adults theoretically become involved in. You focus on how this makes that kid feel, that character feel at this time, and really what's important to that character. Why does he look up to Holmes? Does he look up to Holmes because he's getting money? Well, yeah, that's useful. But he looks up to Holmes because Mr. Holmes is respected, and Mr. Holmes treats him with respect or treats her with respect. He sees him, he sees her, he talks to them like they're real people. And that becomes what's important for me to really work with those characters and work with those exchanges and those emotions so that hopefully, if I'm successful, the writing becomes its own world and then readers are pulled into that. And so once again, committing to the work that you want to do, the stories you want to tell, committing to that world, creating those characters is another way of saying to yourself, you know what? I know all this crap is going on around me, but I need to go here and be here to get this done. And I'm giving myself permission to do that. And
Yeah.
then create that environment.
Let's talk about the work in progress that might be directly addressing the politics of the moment. My last three things each became a bigger statement about current events. It's been a privilege. It's pretty masked. It's pretty metaphoric. America, We Need to Talk was more romanticizing the hurt. But Soul Scream Anthologine, Fear and Loathing, was, I don't know, 16 different authors, something like that, 12 different authors, writing the nightmares that current events were inspiring, you know? Whatever work you do, you have to put out in the world, right? That's the idea, to complete the circle from the creator through the process to the reader, right? Because that's why we create, to connect with someone else. Each of these is sold a bit and that kind of thing. What I have found is that I do not promote and market these as much as I believed I was going to do. And in a pregame conversation with Alex, when we were selecting this topic, I had to confront that and say, I have to consider, am I just swept up in the next group, the next work in progress? Or is there a little fear, little trepidation? Is there a little concern about making yourself a target? Alex and I mentioned that there was a politician that, or political activist, or whatever you want to call him, lifelong public servant in DC, who had worked in the previous administration of our current president and had since turned against him. Well, his house was raided today. Whether there is good reason or not, that's going to be seen. But it becomes more and more clear with the military escapades that are Washington, D.C. these days, and just attacks on illegal immigrants. And then all of a sudden you're hearing these videos where, like, he's legal. What are you talking about? He's, or farmers saying, you grabbed all my guys and now I'm going broke because no one will work here. Look at South Park. They are flying in the face of all of that fear. But they have $1.5 billion of FU money. You, ladies and gentlemen out there, Alex over here, and I do not have $1.5 billion of FU money. So each and every one of us has to talk about to ourselves, what can we put out there? What are we comfortable with? What fears are real and what aren't? I have to tell you, in my heart of hearts, I think I'm so far down the lists that I may not be on the list of people.
No
I may
on the
not
back
be
of the
on.
pad.
Yeah, I may not even be on. So that's a dose of reality. And the reason the fear took such a strong hold was because I was doom scrolling, and you see it right in front of you. You're holding it in your hand, and you're on your phone. And it feels so close to you. But whether it's privilege or whether it's the particular tone of my skin, or whether that I'm tucked away in a little tiny house in a little tiny neighborhood in a little tiny corner of New Jersey, and that's not anyone's priority, it doesn't make a difference. You have to address what fears you might have. And does the fear outweigh? I mean, one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to come out the other end of this saying I could have done more. And I mean, I would argue, I would put efforts I've made against any of the other creators that are out there. I think I've put 3 decent pieces of work out there to address.
4, if you count something that you wrote due to a different time not that long ago.
Oh, A Simple Rebellion?
Yep.
God damn, I tell you what, that thing is more true than ever before. It's wild. It's just wild.
Mm-hmm.
That is the thing that should be required reading, I think. But it just comes down to what side you want to be on. I'm reading a report about how Florida is taking Anne Frank's book off the shelves of schools. Can't read that in Florida in school anymore. And I know why the cage bird sings, and all these other books. Can't read them. Do you want to be on that side of things? No, I don't. No, I don't. I, I'll keep doing this, and I'll find ways to promote this stuff. I'm working on a big project now that may be just a cash drain or maybe the answer of marketing that I really need. But the idea is you got to recognize, are you dragging your feet because you're afraid? What are you afraid of? What's the real issue? How realistic is that issue? And where do you want to be seen 20 years down the line?
And to again wheel this back into the world of writers
Yeah.
and artistic creatives, we cannot ignore who we are simply because we're writers. Who you
Right.
are, meaning where you were born, how you were raised, what you love, what you hate, what foods you eat, what your, if you have any religious beliefs, whatever your political stance is, all of these things, your friends, your neighbors, family, all of these things make up a portion of who you are as a human being. And it is
Yes.
always my mantra that everything that creatives do filter through who we are.
Oh, yeah.
Totally influenced, all of our work is totally influenced by that. So ultimately, if we're afraid and we have to face that, if we choose through that fear not to do anything, fine, you live with that. If you choose to, in some way, shape, or form, take action, positive action, and again, where Chris and I stand politically or personally or socially is our thing, and we're not telling you
Right.
you must do what we do, but we are saying that again for those of you who are fearful and distressed in terms of what's happening now, and you are writers and you are artists and filmmakers, and you want to do something, any level of me doing something, meaning you doing something, is acceptable. And I will put it this way because I'm going to be more specific. I hate the infighting between people in the same group, supposedly at the same cause, going to their fellow person. Oh, well, because you weren't out there on the picket line, what you're doing isn't worth it. You're just getting signatures. I was out there when the cops are coming. Come on. Come on. Everybody has to choose how they feel most comfortable and most effective. What can they do? Some people during election times they make phone calls or they sign petitions or they print out flyers for other people to go and hand out or they vote or yes, some people get out and march. Some people get out and march in the face of physical threat. Everybody's contribution is worthwhile. And for Chris, the books that he's done, both in your face and more of a fictional approach, those stories have their value. For me, I have not done what Chris has done in that respect, but I found it rather ironic, and this is why I wanted to make this point. Months and months and months ago, I decided to do a series of short blackjack stories, and I had
Hmm.
mapped out plots for those stories. And
Hmm.
as the circumstances around us began to develop, I became amazingly aware of how the very simple stories that I was planning to do, the themes that deal with the 1930s, because this is when the stories are taking
Yeah.
place, mirror many of the things that are going on right now. And
Well,
so as I'm writing them, my hero and the characters that he teams up with are definitely in particular frames of mind about how they feel about the things going on at that time. And sometimes those statements and those reactions mirror the things that are happening now, or in some cases, my rah-rah to stand and face the evil.
yeah.
So ultimately, you can be doing fiction, you can be doing children's stories, and if your belief is that good people should do good, then in your children's stories, press that thought. For Anne Frank's books to be pulled off the shelf is ludicrous. And I understand why folks on the other side of that did it, but that is in itself a pathetic act.
Yeah.
Pathetic. But again, it's easy for bullies to do picayune, petty things. So
Well,
fine, they do that.
it reminds me of Stephen King saying when they ban the books, that's providing you a reading list to take to the libraries and the bookstores.
There you go.
What is it that they don't want you to know?
Yeah.
Anne Frank was she 14 when she was writing that?
Yeah.
12, 14, something like that. And she was a kid. She was a pure human being. She That book is not overtly political. That book doesn't have a speech in it other than her reflections on being human. If you're against being human, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I'm not sure if I can help you there, buddy.
Folks, what we're trying to say here today, and I know that Chris and I can go on for another hour doing it. What we're trying to say is, again, as creatives, we're dealing with a double-edged sword. One side cuts us, and the other side cuts in the opposite direction. We cannot be anything other than who we are. And if
Yeah.
we feel compelled to tell these stories in the face of some of the circumstances that are scary to us or others, if we feel that compulsion, then do it. Now, are there safe ways to do it or safer ways to do it? Yes. And if you can think of that and you feel good about that, go for it. If you want to, again, in your own way with your typewriter, pen, paper, whatever, poke the bear, poke the bear.
Well,
Because
I am.
ultimately that's what we're fighting for, the right to be able to do that.
But you can poke the bear overtly, or you can express yourself metaphorically. I
Hmm.
mean, I just got published in Jenny Rector's The Horror Scene, her fall 2025 collection from the website. And it was a Mallory and Gunner story called Beasts.
Mallory and Gunner, his two cop heroes
Yeah.
who take
Uh,
on bizarre cases.
yes. And when you find out who the beasts are, it's not overtly political, but it's definitely social. And there wasn't one overtly political line in the whole thing. It was straight ahead supernatural detective story, right? But you can still do it. You can still do it. So it's that old adage. Sometimes the only way is through. We can't say, this is not a situation. Well, this is very much a roller coaster situation. And you can't on the top of as you're approaching the second hill, you can't say, okay, stop. I'm going to walk back from here. Right. You can't. You got
You
to
want
go
to,
through.
but you can't.
So which way do you do it? Do you and hide it all? Do you scream and enjoy it? Do you take something from it and then turn it into a piece of art? That's Each of you will have to answer that. But what we're here to tell you about today is what you do is important.
And how you feel about what you
Yeah,
do is
yeah,
important.
it's important.
Chris
You
and
know,
I will make a sort of a one sheet bullet point of the things that we touched on as techniques. I think we can add a couple more to those. So look for a download wherever you're picking this up. If you're on Spotify, I'm not quite sure where that lands, but on our Facebook page, Tell the Damn Story on our Facebook page and our Instagram page, you'll find a link that'll lead to that. And also, obviously, on the Tell the Damn Story website, you'll find a link to a download with a list of suggestions about how you can deal with this stuff. And that is all we have for today.
it was just a little nudge. It
Yeah.
was just a little reassurance. You're not alone,
Now
and
I'm gonna go write
encouragement to
write
keep
some more.
going.
Yes, and I'm gonna go write
Keep,
some more blackjacks stuff
yeah,
and have fun with that. And Chris is gonna tackle his projects, and we're gonna keep on keeping on because every time we get up in the morning, there's that opportunity. Why let it go by?
there you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Let us know in the comments what you thought, what you would like to see from us, what we may have missed, and
Oh
any
yeah.
questions you might have,
Yes. Yes.
and
If you no. Hmm?
and subscribe.
Yes, and I was going to also say, because Chris, you just sparked another thought there. If you have your own techniques for dealing with some of these things, please drop them in the comments, because we will be happy to share that with other people.
We can give you full credit.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
You could be world famous. You could be a world famous Tell a Damn Story contributor.
Yeah, there you go. World famous. Right. Take care, everybody. Take care, Chris.
Peace.